Have you ever seen cartoons of a person with a little angel on one shoulder and a little devil on the other? The devil trying to convince the person to do bad things, and the angel trying to encourage the person to do good things. Well, the teachings of the new church say that there's some truth to that idea. There are good and evil spirits with us, influencing our thoughts and feelings. Today we're going to talk about what's accurate about that shoulder angel, shoulder devil picture, and what's not quite right. And then we're going to use the story we read in our lessons about Jacob leaving Laban to talk about how we can gradually leave behind spirits that are not serving us well anymore. So, according to the teachings of the new church, that picture of an angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other does capture something true about the experience of being a human being. But it's also a pretty blurry picture. With the help of the teachings of the new church, we can take that blurry picture and zoom in and see what's going on with more detail and clarity and understanding. What a blessing to have the teachings of the new church. We're going to go through 5 clarifying points about the spirits who are with us. And first is the idea that we are influenced by spiritual beings. In fact, our first reading from Arcana Celestia said that if those spiritual beings were taken away from us, we would instantly cease to have any thought or will at all and would instantly fall down completely dead. Our very survival depends on our connection with spiritual beings. And because of that, this connection is not something we only experience now and again. In stories, people have the shoulder angel and shoulder devil pop up at critical moral decision points. There they are, what are you going to do? And then they go away again. But that's not how it works. The teachings of the new church say that we have these spiritual beings with us all the time. When we're awake, when we're asleep, at exciting times, at boring times, they're with us. They're the source, or at least they're the way through which we receive every thought and every affection that we experience. So what do we call these spiritual beings that are with us? People who've been around the new church for a while may be familiar with the term associate spirits, the spirits that we associate with. New church people have also called them at various times attendant spirits or companion spirits. But the reality is the teachings of the new church don't have a consistent term that they use for them, apart from just referring to them as the spirits who are with a person. And that's kind of long, so I'm going to go with associate spirits because it's shorter. But and also because I think it captures our relationship with them. They're not really attending us. They're not really our companions, though those capture something of the reality. I think associating is the most accurate, but you can figure out and tell me afterward what phrase works best for you. So that's the first idea, is we are influenced by associate spirits all the time. The second idea is that these associate spirits were just normal human beings who have died and are now in the spiritual world. The new church teaches there's not some separate race of angels and separate race of devils. There's not some red guy with a pitchfork and horns on one shoulder and an angel with a halo and wings on the other. All angels and devils were once human beings who lived in the natural world. Yes, they are angels and devils now, but they're also somebody's uncle, somebody's grandma, somebody's cousin. That's who is associated with us. And when we're picturing these spirits who are associating with us, it feels useful to demystify a little bit and remember they were all regular human beings once, muddling their way through the natural world, being good at some stuff, being not so good at other stuff, being clear about some things, being kind of confused about other things. That's who's hanging out with us. They are spiritual beings, and they do influence our spiritual life, but that's also true of the spiritual beings that are sitting around you right now and that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's important to remember that when we're thinking about who we're associating with spiritually, that also includes the people around us in the natural world. Our group of friends that we hang out with, and what that group of friends are into and like, and how they talk with each other, that has an effect on our associate spirits. It's also true of the books that we read and the TV shows that we watch and the radio that we tune into and the social media sites that we go on to, and on and on and on. All these things influence our associate spirits, and our associate spirits influence those things. And this interaction between the people we associate with in the natural world and the spiritual world helps us to understand how to deal with or work on our associate spirits, because sometimes our associate spirits might not be feeling so good. They might be feeling pretty hopeless and down. And so we can go talk to somebody else who is in better spirits than us, and they can listen to us and maybe help us to feel a little bit better too. And I don't know what's going on there, whether the spirits with us are feeling a little bit better then, or if the hopeless spirits move away and some more hopeful spirits come to be with us. But either way, it's useful to remember when we're dealing with these spirits, go find some of those spirits around you. Point number 3 is that there are generally at least 4 associate spirits with us. Not just one angel and one devil, but at least 4. 2 heavenly and 2 hellish. With the heavenly spirits, one acts on the desires in our will, and the other acts on the thoughts in our understanding. The one acting on our will influences our loves, our ends in view, our good intentions, and the one acting on our understanding influences our faith, our principal convictions, and the true ideas that we have. And the same is true, unfortunately, on the hellish side, too. Those hellish associate spirits, the one acting on our understanding argues against the truth, and it says, a passage says, they're delighted when they can make truth look like falsity and falsity look like truth. That's so much fun. And the one acting on our will senses what it is that we desire, and if it's a good desire, they work to bend it toward what's evil. And they are delighted when they can make us perceive good as evil and evil as good. Such good friends we have hanging out with us. And as we make our decisions towards good or towards evil, the heavenly or hellish spirits draw closer to us or withdraw from us depending on what we're doing. And also, depending on whether we are more focused in our understanding or in our will, one of those particular spirits will then draw closer to us. If we're really trying to figure stuff out mentally, probably the understanding spirit's going to be with us. And if we're really feeling what's going on in our hearts and affections, then a heart spirit's going to be with us. And the teachings of the new church also explain that through the heavenly and hellish spirits that are closely associated with each one of us, we're also connected with the angelic or hellish societies that those spirits are from, and with that, with all of heaven and hell. And this is why, when you're reading passages about these spirits in the teachings of the new church, sometimes they talk about there being one spirit with us, or 2, or 4, or whole societies, or all of heaven and hell. All of those things are true. And if you want more about that, I'll share an article with you afterward. Point number 4 is that these associate spirits can't see what's going on for us in the natural world. In those shoulder angel, shoulder devil stories, they're kind of sitting there and looking at whatever the person's looking at, dealing with a situation. They might have opinions about the people around us. But that's not how it works in reality for our associate spirits. They're very closely associated with our thoughts and our will, what's going on deep within us, but they're not aware of our actions or our speech. One passage says that angels and spirits don't know which human beings they're with, just like people on earth don't know which angels and spirits are with us. Only the Lord knows this and arranges this. And this is a really important boundary that the Lord has put in place to avoid hellish spirits taking bodily control over us like they did back when the Lord came into the world. And somehow, knowing that the spirits who are with us don't know exactly who we are and what we're dealing with feels a little reassuring. There's some safety in that anonymity somehow. The last point of clarification is that the spirits who are with us change. It's not the same angels and devils or good associate spirits and evil associate spirits. They change. They change as we grow older. They change as we shift our focus and our interest. they change as we make spiritual progress. And to see a picture of how they can change and what's involved with that, we're now going to focus on the story of Jacob attempting to leave Laban behind. Now, the teachings of the New Church explain this in exquisite, beautiful detail. And you should go read Genesis 31 in the Arcana Celestia. There's so much good stuff in there. I'm going to do a paltry, simplified version of it here. Go read the chapter. It's so good. For our purposes, to keep it general, we're going to take Jacob as us in the story and Laban and his sons as our associate spirits. It's cooler than that, but that's what we're going to work with. Laban particularly means associate spirits that are in a kind of intermediate good. A goodness that's not fully genuine goodness, like heavenly goodness, but it can be a stepping stone on our way to genuine goodness, an intermediate kind of good. Now, a truth about associate spirits that you can see immediately illustrated in this story is that we associate to ourselves spirits who are like us. As one of our lessons said, if we are a haughty person, then the spirits with us will be haughty. If we're vengeful, then the spirits with us will also be vengeful. In Jacob's case, he was a tricky wheeler and dealer who manipulated situations to his own advantage. And guess what? He got to spend 20 years working for an uncle who was exactly the same way. Now, it ended up working out well for Jacob. He emerged from his time with Laban with a large family and lots of livestock, servants, and other possessions. And similarly, the Lord makes it so that we gain many good things along the way by means of our time spent with different societies of associate spirits. But there are also costs in associating with spirits that are only somewhat good. Jacob said that Laban changed his wages 10 times in the time that he worked for him. And he was always trying to cheat Jacob out of what he was owed. Jacob said to Laban, "Unless the God of my father had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty." And the funny thing is, Laban doesn't disagree with him on this point. Laban still claims that everything that Jacob has is his own. He says, "The daughters are my daughters, the sons are my sons, the flock is my flock. All that you see, it's mine." This is what makes it hard for us to move on in our lives when we feel like many of the good things that we have came from or even belong to the very thing that we're trying to leave behind. An example might help this make more sense. Think about the motivation of wanting to impress people. If you have a strong motivation to want to impress people, that comes in part from your associate spirits. There are many, many spirits in this spiritual world who are all about showing people the results they can get, how smart they are, how hardworking they are, what a good person they are. And if we have those kinds of spirits hanging out with us, we will feel feelings and think thoughts that help us get stuff done. We will make to-do lists. We will work hard. We will stay up late. And good things will come from it, just like Jacob gained a lot from his time spent with Laban. But doing things to impress people comes with costs too. The goalposts keep moving. There's always more to achieve. We can always do things a little bit better. And other good things are sacrificed on the altar of trying to impress people. And so we might decide that we're done with that. We're going to stop doing things to impress people. Want to move on. But we might worry what will happen if we aren't trying to impress people anymore. Who will we be without that? Will we accomplish anything if we're not burning that fuel, if we're not being driven by that? Maybe everything we have belongs to our desire to impress people. What the teachings of the New Church reveal to us is the reason we're feeling this reluctance to leave that state behind is because the spirits we've been associating with in that state, they feel reluctant for us to leave them behind. They can even be indignant, like Laban was indignant toward Jacob. Their feeling is that they're the ones who got us all this good stuff. Do we not realize that it all belongs to them? How could we leave them behind? How could we be so unkind? In the story, it was a process with a number of steps for Jacob to fully leave Laban behind. He first asked Laban to leave, and Laban talked him into staying for another 6 years to maybe get some flocks and herds. So after those 6 years, Jacob talked to his wives about it, and they agreed that it was time to go. Then they snuck away while Laban was busy, but then Laban chased after them. And finally, they set up a pillar and had a meal and made a covenant. And in the morning, Laban finally kissed his grandchildren goodbye and went back to his home and let them be. That was a long process to extract themselves from Laban's household. So if it takes you a while to move on from your desire to impress people or whatever other not-so-great motivations you've got, that's to be expected. Now, there's a lot more we could talk about with associate spirits. It's incredible to think about our every thought and feeling coming from the spirits around us. There are lots of implications to these ideas, and I'm interested to hear what comes to mind for you when we talk afterward. As a concluding thought, I want to point out one final thing that's very obvious in the literal sense story. And that is the only reason that Jacob could safely leave Laban and still get all that he had acquired from that time was because the Lord was protecting him. And the same is true for us. We have all these different associate spirits with us over the course of our days and over the course of our lives. Some good ones and some terrible ones, honestly. But they're not the only people we have with us. We also have the Lord with us. And the reality is that all the goodness that we ever experience does not belong to or originate with the spirits who are associated with us. And it also certainly does not belong to or originate with us. It belongs to the Lord. And we can have it because He wants to share it with us. There are days when we are in good spirits, and there are days when we are in bad spirits. And the Lord will use all of our spiritual experiences to guide our spirits toward goodness and toward peace. Amen.